Shalom. Hiram Yashraal, servant of the Most High Yahuwah and his son, Yahusha, to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, greetings. Brothers and sisters, this video is the introduction to a series that I am going to be teaching entitled, Do the Scriptures Teach a Flat Domed Earth? Again, do the Scriptures teach a flat domed earth? Now, if you have been a part of the truth-seeking community for any stretch of time, there's no doubt you have heard about this controversy. And one of the main questions that people ask, because this is so controversial, is that does this really matter? You know, is this something that we should even be spending our time with? Well, brothers and sisters, I'm not going to be dealing with that in this video because I actually dealt with that in another video. If you're looking at this in the playlist, then it's the first video in the playlist. But if not, then go through our archives and look for a message entitled, Should We Discuss the Flat Earth? In that video, I discuss as far as why it's important, whether or not it is a distraction, whether it's worth our time. I cover all of that in that video. But in this video series, brothers and sisters, my concentration is going to be on answering the question, do the Scriptures teach a flat domed earth? I'm not going to be spending a lot of time on research material. In fact, I'm not going to be spending any time on that, but I'm going to challenge you to do your own research. So I wanted to do this introduction video and just to set the tone for what I'm getting ready to do, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to be going through the first 4 days of creation. I believe that's the best way to approach this, is to go back to the very beginning. The first 4 days of creation, and then we're going to go throughout the Scriptures, and we are going to look at Scriptures that confirm what we're told about the first 4 days of creation. But concerning research, there's all kinds of research material on the internet. I'm not here to promote any particular person's website or any particular person's materials, but what I will do in this introduction is give you some guiding principles for you to do your own research in this area. Because I myself, this was introduced to me earlier in the year, and so I searched it out through the Scriptures. I did my own research from multiple sources. I would never advise you just to go to one place, because every truth is confirmed by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. But I do want to give you some guiding principles, since I'm not going to be including research material, and so that you can do your own research. And so the first thing I want to say is that make sure that you don't answer matters before you hear them. I know it's a temptation, because even hearing about this subject, you know, it brings forth a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, and some people, it's there's a lot of ridicule, you know, and just because it's so far out. It's so far out, and it's so different than what we were taught in the public schools and what we've been fed through the media, that it just seems ridiculous. And so, well, what I want to encourage you to do is just put all of those feelings aside and just be objective with this thing and hear this matter out. Number one, hear it out through the Scriptures, but then through your own research, just weigh the evidence, hear the matter out before making a judgment. And so don't answer matters before you hear it. We know the Scriptures already teach that. Now, the second point I want to make with this, it goes right along with it, and that is to make sure that your motive is right in your research. So research to understand and not to debunk. See, I I've dealt with other controversial matters, and I've seen people who they do research merely to debunk somebody else. And when you research to debunk rather than to understand, then your research is going to be skewed. It's not going to be balanced, and I've seen it many times, where if you're researching to disprove something, then you're going to be basically looking for what you want to hear, and there's going to be people out there that are going to put out what you want to hear. But if you're researching to understand, then you'll look at both sides of the matter, and you will judge righteous judgment. Now, in this case, when we talk about looking at both sides of the matter, the standard model of the heavens and the earth, the globe model, the heliocentric, meaning sun-centered globe model, where we're in a solar system with other so-called planets, and we're in a galaxy in a big infinite universe. When we talk about looking at both sides, the first side of it, most of us have gotten since we were children. And we were taught all through school and through the media. And I mean, you know, we know all about that. And so, but when we talk about researching to understand, see, the scriptures tell us understand first and then rebuke. So if we have a rebuke or we have a reproof, let's make sure we understand what we're talking about. Now, number 3 is important as well, and that is consider the source. When you're looking at research material, consider the source. Consider who you're hearing it from. Are you hearing it from someone who believes in Yah or somebody who is an unbeliever? Also, are you hearing it from a paid scientist, or are you hearing it from ordinary people, just like you and I? And ask yourself this question too, that when you look at research material from paid scientists, ask yourself this question. If this scientist were to come up with a radically different conclusion than what he's come up with, would he keep his job? See, that's a motivating factor. So we have to consider the source of what we're looking at, because we want to make sure that we're getting truth. We're not getting something that's skewed or biased, or somebody's motivated by money, but we want to make sure that what we're getting is pure and what we're getting is right. And that may not be altogether possible, but we want it to be as close to that as possible. So consider the source. Fourth thing is to judge with equal weights and measures. Now, this subject comes up probably more than some of y'all would like for it to come up. But the reason why it does is because we claim to be seekers of truth. And so when it comes to matters of truth, there's a lot of things that come to the table. And a lot of things that are outside of salvation and weighty spiritual matters, and we all know that. You know, people talk about all kinds of things. People talk about UFOs, and are UFOs going to come and gather the Israelites? People talk about Esau, and who is Esau today? Is he the white man, or is he the Arabs? And there's all kinds of topics that are out there, and some of these are major, but some of these are minor. And so when we talk about judging with equal weights and measures, don't judge something to be irrelevant or a distraction and something non-salvational if there are other matters that we allow to come to the table that are on the same level, that are every bit as minor, and we don't fuss about those. We don't have an issue with those. And so we're not to be ignorant in any matter, whether great or small. And nobody is saying that this teaching that I'm bringing forth, that it's something that we need to preach as the Besorah, as the good news, and it's something that we just have to deal with every week. Nobody is saying that. The issue is this, though, that if something is dealt with in the Scriptures at least a dozen times, and even many times out of Yah's own mouth, it's important for us to know. And so when we talk about the subject of the heavens and the earth, and why there's so many things in the scripture that are written about this, we have to ask ourselves, why did Yah get so specific? And you're going to see through this teaching series, he got specific. And the scriptures do get specific. So why do the scriptures get so specific in regard to this topic? Could it be that Yah said, Yah saw ahead of time that things would be twisted, things would be perverted, and that they would need to be restored according to the scriptures? Could that be? Possibly. But once again, I mean, if we see something dealt with at least a dozen times in the scriptures, it's important for us to know. And the fifth thing I want us to say, and most important of all, is to seek Yah above all things, because the secret things belong unto Yahuwah, but the things revealed belong unto us and to our children, that we may keep all the words of this Torah. And so what all truth boils down to, brothers and sisters, is revelation. Whether or not Yah reveals something to you, because something can be as plain as the nose on your face, but Yah can hide it from you. Praise Yah. So the main thing is we need to seek Yah above all things, make sure our hearts are right with Yah. You know, the scriptures tell us that the meek will he guide in judgment, and the meek will he teach his way. So we don't want anything in our hearts and in our minds that would cause Yah to blind us, because ultimately truth boils down to revelation from Yah. Yah either shows it to you or he doesn't show it to you. Praise Yah. Now, there are some questions that I believe would be good for you to ask in your research, and I'm going to lay these out. I'm going to lay out about 5 questions that would be good to guide you in your research. And the first question would be, what was the view of ancient societies when it comes to the heavens and the earth? And when I talk about ancient societies, I'm talking about the Sumerians, the Sumerians, not Sumerians, but Sumerians, the Babylonians, Assyrians, Egyptians, Greeks. Research that. Research what their view of the heavens and the earth was back in their time. Number 2 is, who introduced the idea of a globe earth? Was it the Hebrews? Do we see it introduced from the scriptures? Was it any of the other ancient societies that I mentioned? So who introduced this idea? And number 3 goes along with it, is that who introduced the idea of a heliocentric universe, meaning a universe where everything revolves around the sun? Who introduced that idea? So do your research on that. Ask yourself that question. And number 4, who controls the established astronomical information today? Now, what I mean by that, let's look at the medical industry, for example. And you can ask yourself, well, who controls the established medical information today? Somebody controls it. And if you want proof of it, if you are a medical doctor, and let's say that you find a cure for cancer, and let's say that you go around telling everybody about your cancer cure and getting on the news and making a big hoopla about it. Watch what happens. See if you stay alive. My point is, somebody is controlling the information out there. And so when it comes to the medical industry, there's a reason why the masses, the majority of people in the world, believe there's never been a cure for cancer found, when there's been many cures by just ordinary natural doctors who seem to die mysteriously when their cures start getting a lot of attention. And so that's the point I'm making, is that a lot of the mass information out there is controlled, and it's controlled by somebody. So you need to ask yourself, when it comes to astronomical information, who controls that? Are these people of Yah? Are these people who believe in Yah? Who are these people? There is the largest astronomical observatory in the world is located in a particular place. Research what that place is. Research who controls that observatory. You'd be surprised. And then the last question, and the most important question, is this. And I really want to drive this home, and that is, how much of what we have been taught when it comes to astronomy, when it comes to the heavens and the earth, how much of what we have been taught is actually provable by ordinary people? So in other words, we're not just depending on the calculations and estimations of all these scientists with these long degrees and whatnot, but ordinary people can actually prove the points that they're making. And so how much of what we have been taught falls under that category, something that ordinary people can prove? And to make my point, that we know that frogs need oxygen in order to live. And that's not something you need a scientist for. All you have to do is get you a glass, put a frog in it, and if you keep your hand on it long enough, the frog will die. So an ordinary person can prove that. Also, plants need light in order to grow. You don't need a scientist to tell you that. You can get you a plant, stick it in the closet, and close it up for about 3 weeks, and then open it and take it out. And what are you going to have? You're going to have a dead plant. And so that's what's good about those type of sciences, is that you can prove them yourself without some expert trying to tell you what to believe. But when it comes to astronomy, when it comes to the heavens and the earth, see, this is unique because none of us have been up there. I haven't been up there. You haven't been up there, and chances are we're not going to go up there anytime. So much of what we're told in this area, we have to trust the experts. We have to trust that what they're telling us is true. But see, when it comes to this subject, though, there are many things that ordinary people can do, and ordinary people have done in research in order to establish truth in this area. And if you do your research, you'll see what I'm talking about, because that's something that's very important. If you're a part of the Truth Seeker community, you already know that so much information out there is controlled. And it's controlled, it's for the purpose of controlling and manipulating the people. And the love of money is the root of all evil. You know, we know that that factors in as well. And so it's very important that the power be brought back into the hands of ordinary people. That ordinary people be able to go do their own independent research, conduct their own experiments, and see for themselves what is a fact and what is not a fact. Because, yes, we want to make sure that the scriptures and the facts, that they align, but we have to ask ourselves, what is a fact? A fact is not something that someone tells you is a fact. A true fact is something that you can verify for yourself. And so that's the most important question you can ask. How much of what we have been taught is actually provable by ordinary people? Now, throughout this series, brothers and sisters, I'm going to be reading from the Scriptures translation, and I'm also going to be reading from the Sefer translation, because there's going to be some apocryphal references in there. And also, I'm going to be reading from Enoch. Now, I know Enoch is somewhat controversial. Some receive it as Scripture. Some don't receive it as Scripture. My position on it at the present time is that as long as it doesn't contradict the normal body of scriptures that we do have, Genesis to Malachi, then I'm fine with it. So I'm not here to either endorse or deny Enoch, but I'm bringing it out because a lot of you do receive Enoch as scripture. A lot of you do put your confidence in the book of Enoch, and I do want to bring out what the book of Enoch does say about this subject, about the heavens and the earth. And so, brothers and sisters, as I said, we're going to be answering the question, do the scriptures teach a flat domed earth? And so I ask you to get your scriptures out and look at this objectively, pray, seek Yah, and then make your conclusion. Praise Yahuwah. And I invite you to even leave remarks. Leave remarks, leave comments, questions, whatever you have. Let all things be done unto edifying now. But I encourage you to do so. So let's seek truth together. And with that, I will say, Shalom.